Ever had an awkward hiking question you're dying to ask, but you just felt too embarrassed to ask it or mention it? Even after hiking tough Australian tracks for over 30 years, I still regularly hear veteran hikers secretly struggling with these exact issues. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to stay dry and warm easily, handle wilderness health emergencies safely, manage power efficiently, and discover personal comfort solutions that nobody openly talks about. Let's start with one that's awkward to even say out loud. Is it normal for my inner thighs to feel like they've been sandpapered to bits? Chafe management, the silent expedition killer. So let's get brutally honest for a second. Is it normal for my inner thighs to feel like they've been rubbed raw after a few days on the track? If you've ever waddled into camp like you've just ridden a horse across a desert, you already know. Chafe between the legs is real, and it is an absolute trip killer. I remember taking two friends on their first overland track trip in the late 1990s, and on day 3, one of them had such bad inner thigh chafe that he was waddling like a penguin. It was awful. And why? Why was it awful? No, well, it was awful, but why did he get the chafe? Well, probably a few factors. Poor fabric choice, no prevention, and gear seams rubbing in all the sort of wrong places. He looked fine on day 1, but by day 3, he was done. Here's how to stop chafe before it starts, and fix it fast if it sneaks in. First, dress like it matters. As goes for layering, use moisture-wicking materials. No cotton. Some people swear by compression shorts under their hiking pants as well. And in regards to underwear, I look for seamless or flat lock designs with no chunky inner seams. But I am yet to find the perfect underwear for hiking. What do you use that works? Let me know in the comments, because I seriously want to find some underwear at work that works. I mean, sometimes it gets to the point that I'm just better not wearing underwear at all. We go commando style, just the shorts on, no underwear. I'm serious. And that seems to help a lot. Secondly, you can lube up. Use things like Body Glide or an anti-chafe balm on the inner thighs, in the groin and in the armpits, and you apply this before you start a day's hiking, and you reapply it throughout the day on those long days. Stay dry and stay moving. Next, you want to try and stay dry. Sweat equals friction, so carry a spare base layer to swap out mid-hike if you regularly suffer from chafe when you're walking. And when you get to camp, change out of soaked clothing, especially underwear. You want to get a dry set of clothing on when you're at camp. Spot it early and fix it fast. If you feel a hot spot, where it's starting to rub, stop immediately. Try and clean it if you can. A bit of water or some wipes, something to sort of clean out the area. Apply a soothing cream as well. Few different options available. Let the area breathe if you're at camp. Loose shorts will lead to no rubbing. Like I said, you can even take the underwear off and just dry out and try and be as comfortable as you can be. If you see blisters, blood or swelling, or it doesn't improve in a day or two, then it's probably time to get back to civilization, and if you need to, see a doctor. But trust me, it's better than bleeding through your shorts. So if you've got to finish the walk early because it's that bad, it's probably worth getting out. Okay, so your thighs are still intact, but what happens when it's not your skin, but your stomach that betrays you? Let's move on to another brutally awkward one. Trail diarrhea, the gut bomb that ends expeditions. Now, let's talk about the issue no hiker really wants to discuss, but every hiker needs to prepare for. What do I do if I get the squirts, or what is commonly known as diarrhea, or in Australia here we even call it the trots? When diarrhea hits on the trail, nothing else matters. You're no longer hiking, you're just surviving. Over a decade ago, on a trip to Frenchman's Cap here in Tasmania, someone in our group woke in the middle of the night with explosive diarrhea. We still had 2 demanding days ahead, and he was completely wrecked. No energy and no appetite. We had to load him up with electrolytes and a bit of loperamide just to get him out safely. And the likely cause in this case, well, probably poor hygiene. No soap, no sanitizer, shortcuts that cost him dearly. Personally, I'm lucky enough to never have had a gut issue on the trail, and I credit that to my years as working as a pharmacist in a sterile hospital environment. And in that environment, hygiene was non-negotiable. And it's also non-negotiable when you're out in the bush. Now, quick disclaimer, this isn't medical advice, just what's worked for me and my clients in the past. Always consult a professional if you're unsure. But here is my simple system to stay healthy on the trail. Lock in your water safety. Now, in Tassie, most water is clean and safe to drink, but whenever you're in doubt, use a filter of some sort. I like to use the Sawyer squeeze filter, but filter the water if you're ever unsure. And for backup, you can also carry chemical purification tablets or drops as well. Pack a simple gut kit. Electrolyte sachets or oral rehydration salts are the sort of things you'd be putting in here. I carry these regardless as part of my rehydration strategy anyway, so they're good to have on hand if something else happens. Antidiarrheals like loperamide, but do check with your doctor first if you are able to take this if something did happen. And if you're hiking overseas, if you're heading overseas, then it does pay to take some antibiotics with you in the event that something did happen and you had a gut problem. I know that when I've traveled through places like Africa hiking, I have got a little first aid kit full of antibiotics just in case I need them if something happens. And again, you'd need to talk to your doctor about that before you went. If it does hit, then eat smart. You need to try and eat something, so go bland. You can have things like rehydrated bananas or things like a plain rice or a mash, some dry sort of crackers or some bland oats, just some oats with a bit of water, just bland food. And avoid things like jerky, nuts, chocolate and raisins. They'll just make it worse, so avoid those. Hydrate, sip fluids frequently. Don't chug the fluid, just slow, small sips. And aim for around 3 litres a day and more if you're sweating heavily as well. And again, use electrolytes consistently to speed recovery. Get serious about hygiene. Wash your hands before meals, sanitize after filtering water, and also after toileting, of course. Isolate sick hikers. Separate their cookware, the utensils, everything, and get them in a separate tent or area if you can. And know when to call it. Evacuate if symptoms last more than 72 hours or if they include blood, fever, or dizziness. But even if your stomach holds out, there is something else that can leave you totally stranded. And this one comes with a side of tech shame. Advanced battery and power management. In the wilderness, your devices aren't just luxuries anymore, they're critical safety tools. Run out of power and you could quickly find yourself hiking blind. No GPS, no lights, no communication. That's a serious problem. On an 8-day hike last year, I made a rookie mistake. I packed a brand new untested battery bank. It looked great on paper, but by day 4, the low battery indicator on the battery was flashing, and suddenly every device became a liability for me. I had to ration power aggressively, so there were no maps on my phone unless absolutely necessary, and I was constantly monitoring each device's battery level. Now, luckily I did have a backup map, so paper map, so that was all good, but it was just frustrating, stressful, and a lesson I had to learn the hard way. Here's how to build a power strategy that won't leave you stranded mid-trip. Choose battle-tested batteries. For shorter hikes, a 10 to 20,000 sort of milliamp hour power bank is ideal. And a shorter hike, I mean maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days. For longer trips, you want to get, I want to get a 20,000 milliamp hour battery. They're pretty light these days. And for those really long trips of a week or more, then what I do now is I take 2 smaller banks for redundancy. So this is my current setup. So I'll take, on an 8 or 9 day trip, I'm taking 2 20,000 milliamp hour batteries or one 20,000 milliamp hour battery and a 10,000. And with your phone, follow a power saving phone protocol. So this is doing things like making sure it's in airplane mode, have a black wallpaper, no colored wallpaper screen, use a grayscale screen on your phone as well, and do things like turn off Bluetooth, turn off any background apps, turn off the Wi-Fi, all that stuff. Only power on devices when absolutely necessary, then just shut them down again if there's something you're not using regularly. Download any stuff you need before you hit the track. So things like offline maps and that sort of thing, do them at home before you hit the track, so you're not doing it on the way and depleting the battery in your phone on the way there. The other useful thing to know is your gear's power draw, sort of the daily milliamp hour usage that each device will use. And if there's cold weather expected, then add at least 30% of your expected usage. And it's a good idea to just test the whole battery setup before you leave home. So test those batteries. Are they working? How many charges do you get of a phone out of your battery bank? Then you'll have a good idea when you hit the track. Having a power strategy dialed in means you'll never have to hike blind again, hopefully. So you've got the devices charged, they're ready to go, but what about the one piece of gear that most people absolutely trash without even knowing it? The sleeping bag maintenance myth that's ruining your warmth. Now, one thing I discovered recently is that a lot of hikers unknowingly abuse their sleeping bags, and they're silently shortening their lifespan. The sleeping bag's lifespan, not the hiker's lifespan. Now, let's bust a myth far too many of my friends, at least, seem to believe. Your sleeping bag is not self-cleaning. If you're treating it in a way that you think it doesn't need cleaning, well, you're slowly destroying its insulation and warmth without even realizing it. I've got mates who genuinely ask me,
Wait, you actually wash your sleeping bag?
and I'll just stare at them like, yeah, I do, like once a year at least. One of my friends, he hadn't cleaned his bag ever, not once. And he'd been hiking for years and years. The thing, I imagine, would have smelled like feet or a wet dog or something. And I reckon the insulation in the thing was flat as a pancake. At that point, it's basically just an expensive body bag. So here is how to keep your sleeping bag lofted, clean and warm without wrecking it. You want to match your wash frequency to the amount that you're using it. So if you're hiking regularly, there's no exact rule, but probably every 30 to 40 nights of use is probably a good guideline on which you would wash it, but you'll get an idea of when it's time. It'll have that, the loft won't bounce back like it should. It won't be as lofted. It'll be sort of, you know, the loft, when it gets dirty, it gets that sort of, almost feels moist and it just doesn't regain its loft as quickly. What does that even mean? Yeah, so around 30 to 40 nights if you're hiking pretty regularly. If you're a weekend warrior, just doing the odd weekend trip here and there, then maybe once a year, maybe you get away with once every 2 years. And again, if you're just an occasional hiker going out very rarely, maybe every 2 years, I'd wash my bag if I'm getting, 5-6 trips in, maybe a few more. And when you do wash it, it's just not a matter of just tossing it in the washing machine with some soap and washing it. Just don't do that. Please don't do that. With a down bag, you want to use a specialist down wash, like ones I've used in the past. Mainly Nikwax is about the only one I've ever used. I think that's just because it's always been there and that's the one I've always used and it works well. But there are other brands available. Now, how do you wash it? Well, I washed mine to start with back years ago. I used to always wash mine in a bathtub. I'd wash it in there by hand and then squeeze out the water and let it dry on a big table somewhere on top of some towels over a few days. The other way you can do it is in a front-loading washing machine. You can do that as well on a delicate setting. If you use a synthetic bag, you might use a technical wash, but just check the manufacturer's instructions on how to wash it. And most manufacturers say you should avoid standard dry cleaning as it can kill the loft and it can strip waterproof coatings on the bag. But there are plenty of specialist dry cleaners out there that advertise that they will wash down sleeping bags, so they're worth checking out as well. Also, don't ruin your sleeping bag or quilt in storage. Some companies claim you can store down bags compressed in their stuff sack, but to be safe, I never store mine compressed in a stuff sack. I always store it loosely to maintain the loft of the bag or the quilt. I use a breathable storage bag that came with the quilt or sleeping bag, and I will just store it loose in a cupboard. And when you're storing it, keep it away from direct sunlight and damp areas, so don't store it like somewhere in a garage that's damp and wet, somewhere that's going to be dry. And if you do that, your sleeping bag's going to stay in tip-top condition for decades. Now, your sleeping bag's in top shape, but here is the real kicker. What do I do if something critical breaks mid-hike and I didn't pack a spare? It's one of those questions no one wants to admit they've overlooked until they're 20 kilometers in the bush with a busted hip belt buckle and no plan B. The invisible gear failure that can ruin your hike. But gear doesn't care how remote you are. It fails when it wants, and if you're not prepared, one tiny break can derail your entire trip. On a remote hike in southwest Tasmania, my mate's hip belt buckle snapped clean off. He figured he'd just rely on the chest strap, maybe tie a knot in the waist belt and just push on. I mean, that just tie a knot in your waist belt. If you've ever tried hiking kilometers through relentless scrub without proper hip support, you know it's going to be brutal. Your pack weight will shift, your shoulders will get hammered, and your posture is just going to break down. Luckily, on that instance, I carry a spare buckle in my repair kit. Lightweight, tiny, and in that moment, it absolutely saved his trip and probably his back as well. You don't need to pack an entire toolbox. Just carry what I call a trail-tuned micro repair kit. It might contain a few things like some duct tape, which is wrapped around your trekking pole or around a lighter, or Leuco tape done the same thing. You might have some zip ties in there across a few different sizes. Zip ties just come in so useful. You might have a bit of spare cord or guy line, and you can use this to fix guy line. You can use it for shoelaces. You can use it as a clothesline if you want to when you're having a rest day. And a little needle and thread can also come in very handy as well. Very small, very light, but mighty. And of course, the backup buckle or clip. Seriously, grab one, chuck it in your kit right now because it is so useful when you need it and it just weighs nothing. I also have a small flint in there as well. Just tiny, reliable fire starter if I need it. You want to think of this little repair kit like a fire extinguisher. You hope you'll never need it, but when gear inevitably fails, you'll be glad you didn't gamble. And if you really want to up your hiking game, then watch this next video right here where we dive into the 5 most underrated hiking skills.